Love podcasts, hate nonsense. It's the PoliticsJOE Pubcast! Woohoo! Link the stamp and send it, boys!
That's new.
Yeah, I told you I've stopped whooping at the advice of people that mean a lot to me in my life. So,
My girlfriend didn't realise I whooped too. And she was like, she said to me, thank God it's just Ollie who whooped.
No, it's me as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the luscious tone of PoliticsJOE's golden boy, Ed Campbell. Glad to have you with us, Ed. I see you've made a little annotation on your notes there. Is that to remind people to leave reviews of the podcast? You've only given us 1 star.
There's 6 stars there.
1 of 6, okay.
I've drawn 6 stars on my notepad.
Yeah.
On my notepad.
Sure, very good. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Glad to have you with us. And of course, as always, Ava Santina. To my left, our political correspondent. Ava, how are you?
Great. I think that listeners will be sad to learn that Ed has a girlfriend.
Well, then
that one
will be.
That one bloke called Neil, who's always like, Ed, that was great today. He's going to be really upset.
Hello to Neil. Hope you're well, sir.
Little hat tip to Neil. How was our bank holiday weekends, guys? I mean, it's basically been a bank holiday month, hasn't it? 3 out of the 4.
40 a week.
A little taster, yeah.
No surrender.
3-day bender, yeah. Too right. What did you get up to?
What did I go up to? Went out for dinner with some friends on Sunday. So, my aforementioned girlfriend.
Yeah.
Making it real clear that you've got a missus.
She goes to another school.
None of you have ever met her. She lives in Canada. What did you guys do?
Yeah, the same. Wholesome. I think when you get to the 3rd bank holiday and you've kind of had enough of being on a bender, you kind of then go for the 3rd one. You're like, this will be a restful bank holiday.
Yeah.
So that was my move. What about you?
I went to Liverpool. And it was the big, Everton might be relegated.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, yeah, well, yeah.
I don't know if you were there.
I don't know. I went to some sort of football thing.
Stop this. It's so painful, right? We talked about Man City last week, and I saw a comment on the YouTube channel about you being on your phone during that conversation.
Yeah.
Everton home and away on the last day of the season where they stay up. What did you think of Doucouré's goal?
Oh, well, No, just, I think we were.
Is it a bit? I can't tell. You're what's happening?
I don't know. All I'm thinking about right now is how I just ate a whole bowl of ramen before we started this, and I am like sweating spice profusely. You're trying to talk normally, and I'm just overheating.
Okay.
No, the game was really good. It was actually it wasn't good. Okay.
No.
But we did rewatch it last night without the pressure that Everton could go down. And without that Leicester goal that just like threw everyone off, and we were being violently sick on each other's faces. But for a couple of
I saw that on there's close up of you being sick.
Yeah.
We're clipping
That's our premium content.
Pay for that one. Yeah, I mean, how long can you maintain the pretense that you don't watch football when you've just admitted to watching the same Everton game twice in a weekend, once at the ground and then once after the fact on TV?
What I go for the smell of grass.
Yeah, okay, sure. Very
fragrant football pitch.
Very good. Well, glad to have you both with us. First story of the day that we're going to talk about is this, the deaths in Ely and Cardiff and then the resulting riot and the police lying about that riot. For those of you who aren't familiar with the story, 2 teenagers were killed in Cardiff last week. They were riding an e-bike and that was involved in a road collision. They died. The police came out, or more specifically South Wales Police Crime Commissioner Alan Michael came out the following morning and said it would appear there were rumours, and those rumours became rife, of a police chase, which wasn't the case. Unfortunately for Alan Michael, quite a few, ring doorbells and things like that came out, showing that actually was the case. And a riot resulted, in which there were fireworks thrown, burned cars, officers getting assaulted, and then more people arrested because of it. I mean, I guess the question for me here is, why is the media so keen to believe the police when they come out and talk about something like this? I understand it if, we're talking about, I don't know, like a terror incident and the police put out a statement being like, this has happened. You kind of go, yeah, okay, fine. In the instance of something like this, there's sort of an unquestioning acceptance of the police's narrative of events. And like I said, the evidence has come out. It's pretty clear that actually something pretty nasty has happened. There's more to the story here. Ava, I don't know. What's your take on this?
I mean, how many times have we seen the police do something like that? Like Stephen Lawrence, just as one, glaring example of evidence that was missed or evidence that was lost. All the way through those 20 years? How long has it been now?
Yeah, more.
And still no justice for him at all.
You look at Chris Carber, right? He's shot by the Metropolitan Police. The body cam footage shows him wearing his Rolex watch at the incident. Where's the Rolex now? The police don't know where it is. Oh, it's just disappeared from a crime scene. A likely story. Christopher Older, chokes on his own blood on the floor of a police station, surrounded by police officers making monkey noises. No one has gone to prison for that. John Charles de Menezes, the Met Police press office immediately afterwards says that he was evading arrest, that it was part of a legitimate anti-terror operation. We now know that's not what happened. There is a long, long list of the police lying about things, and not just lying about things that are sort of quite trivial, literally lying about shooting people dead in the street. I don't understand why we still unquestionably, any police force press office puts something out. I mean, fucking Wayne Couzens. Come on.
Yeah. Well, what about what happened during the Black Lives Matter protests? I mean, there was so much footage of that going around social media, and there was this sort of blanket statement from the Met Police, like, no, the activists were being violent. They were not. They were, that weird story about the horse that charged a load of protesters, and they claimed that activists had set the horse off. You could see from the footage that categorically had not happened.
Yeah. I think we've been at protests, right? All of us have reported from protests, and anyone who's been to a protest will know that the police, when they aren't being observed, when there aren't, those people who walk around in high-vis vests that are like legal observers, etc., when those people aren't there, a great example I'm thinking of is the Sarah Everard vigil that you and I went to. Elsewhere, the police, they take liberties. They do not act in a legally acceptable fashion. Same at football matches. How many times have you watched someone just get either filled in or pulled out of a crowd by a police officer but for not really doing? Ava, you would know about this as a diehard Everton fan. How many times have you watched an Everton fan being pulled out of the terraces by the police?
Well, when I've been in the vicinity of a stadium doing other things.
You'd engagement, a meeting at the football ground.
No, I had actually quite a good experience with Staffordshire Police recently.
Really? Would you like to talk about that?
Shall I?
Go ahead. It's
Why
up
not?
to you. Yeah.
So I had some really bad messages were sent to me. They were so bad, threatening to come and hurt my family, sort of thing. And the police have convicted him. He pled guilty last week, and he's being sentenced next week. And
cheers to that.
It's a pretty big deal because it's malicious communications. Pleased with that.
Cheers.
Okay. What are you hoping for in the sentencing?
Well, he can get between, I think it's 2 months and 12 years.
Wow. Is he going to go to prison? Sorry, is he going to go to prison?
Is he?
No, I was moving closer to the microphone. Just abusing Ava on a daily basis.
Yeah. God, let him go, boys.
No,
free my man.
Seriously, will he go to prison? Fucking hell.
He was in for quite a while actually. Before that.
It was
because he was doing the whole threatening to come and kill me thing.
Yeah, the messages were horrific.
Yeah.
Wow. So police on the one hand bad, police also on the other hand good.
Well, Met bad, Staffordshire yet to prove.
Can we do some kind of exchange program where the Staffordshire police come down to London and start policing here, and we ship the Met police out to Staffordshire?
Yeah, they are markedly nicer, I have to say.
But then I think that's very London-centric media bias. What happens to the people of Staffordshire? That doesn't seem fair to inflict that on anyone else.
Deal with the Met.
Yeah, they just have to go feral and start being vigilantes.
Yeah, I guess there's an interesting thing there, isn't there? There's a difference between being on the receiving end of the policing and being the I don't know what the right language is. Is it the client of the police basically being a victim of a crime? Do you know what I mean? Rather than the perpetrator or suspected perpetrator, and the way they treat you, I guess.
Using the police as a service.
Yeah.
It's also, I think maybe it's around the subjectivity that there is with policing. You could, you kind of watch old American movies, and the police can just literally do you on a DUI just because they didn't like you, or they could fine you having your tail light out just because they just don't like the sight of you or whatever. I mean, it's kind of what happens here, right? It's it's your discretion. If a police officer decides that you've pissed him off, he could prosecute you or attempt to. It's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah. And
we've talked about it before about the army. Do you remember?
Remind me.
We had this discussion about when you're in the army, you've got this kind of duty of service and you're more loyal to it. Whereas the people who didn't get into the army go to the police. And so there's no one kind of keeping them in check.
Mm-hmm.
And so you basically end up sometimes with quite violent people, Wayne Couzens, policing.
Yeah. I guess the other thing, we talked about the police lying, right? Couzens kind of lied because he obviously he apprehended Sarah Everard under false circumstances, but what on earth? He had that extensive record of exposing himself in public, right? There are other police officers where that's been the case, and the question that gets raised is why on earth was that not dealt with in advance? I mean, Ed, you listened to that that select committee, right, when the Casey report came out, that dealt with some of the stuff that was spoken about that we're talking about now. What was the kind of view of Baroness Casey?
Yeah, Baroness Casey's idea was basically this is a fucking rotten institution that probably cannot be saved without serious intrinsic.
Was that the exact wording of the parliamentary?
Yeah, it was extraordinary. It was a parliamentary first. But basically, she made the point: it's institutionally racist, homophobic, all the phobics, etc. They're vile to each other. They're vile to the public.
Yeah, ticked off.
They're vile. Like, it's institutional. All the reports that have been done since the 80s, the 70s have been accurate, and nothing's been done about them. I think but then things like, well, maybe with the exception of Staffordshire Police, I think probably you read any story about police force. The police forces are in the news, and it's never like, great job, guys, you finally caught all the pedos, which we would widely celebrate. It's like, oh, this horrific thing has happened, and it's an institutional problem in these things. I just don't, and I don't really think until there's a mass reckoning, a mass public appetite to really engage with the police as an institution, as to like genuinely change it, I think nothing will happen.
I guess that's my sort of question here around what happened in Ely, in Cardiff, which actually is an area I'm familiar with, having gone there to university. My days as a university nightclub promoter, I promoted a warehouse rave in Ely, so I'm quite familiar with it. Splot Warehouse, shout out. But I don't. It's a very poor area. There's no two ways about it. It's working class. There's significant proportion of the population are ethnic minority, and I think you have to ask the question: why did 150 people riot? Why was there? If first of all, if they believed, like the initial version of events, right, was that that there wasn't a police chase, but for some reason the crowd believed that there had been. Now, obviously, the reason why is because it had happened. That's why they thought it. But why were 150 people so ready to accept that version of events? And why was their response to throw fireworks at the police, burn out cars and assault police officers? That's not something that happens in isolation. That's something that happens in a context of the way the police is acting in that community. Mm-hmm. If they had a great relationship with South Wales Police, I can't imagine that their immediate response would be to start throwing fireworks at them. I think that's an important question that should be asked around that.
That bizarre, I mean, it must be so wild that in your area, your local area, an incident happens. You believe a certain chain of events has occurred because that's what you've experienced. And then on the national media, the police are telling you something completely different happened. They're telling the nation something else happened. And it means the entire event goes up for debate. I mean, that must be maddening. It's making me mad.
Yeah.
The gaslighting that's involved in that is extraordinary.
What about more broadly? Do we think about rioting as a legitimate form of political expression? Do you think it goes beyond? Do you think it's acceptable for people to riot?
I think there's an interesting discussion about the respectability politics of protest. About people criticise things like Just Stop Oil or Extinction Rebellion, etc., for being more disruptive than people would like. I think of people who talk about, well, why can't they just do a protest? Why can't they just hold a banner? Why do they have to stop me going on the motorway? Why do they have to do a slow walk through the middle of central London? And there's a good phrase, I'm going to butcher the actual phrase of this, but Audre Lorde made a point about you can't use the master's tools to tear down his house or something like that. Essentially meaning...
Sounds good, regardless.
Yeah, it was great.
Right or not.
Well, if that's not Audre Lorde, that's Ed Campbell. But essentially meaning the master can't dictate what you're going to... He can't say, well, fair is fair. You have to... I can dictate exactly what you can use to protest the institutions, especially when it comes to things like on such an existential level, like climate change or your like community's relationship to the wider socio-economic status of Britain. You can't. I think it's an interesting point about, although it's distasteful, or people perceive it as distasteful, but those people will never be in those circumstances where they're forced into that situation to riot.
Well, you can't just phone it in to you couldn't phone up the Today programme on the BBC and say, oh, I've got, head of climate, Lord Tableton.
The only thing in front of you that's got me or Ed or a pint glass.
George Glass.
Anyway.
Lord George camera rig and lighting.
Yeah, Lord paper hosen is on the line.
Yeah.
And we're going to give him the 8-10, the coveted slot. Clear the way. He's gonna speak. Whereas if you're head of an institution, you're in the government or you're in the police, you're guaranteed that slot if you ring them up and you say you've got a story. So what do you have to do? Obviously, you have to go and disrupt a motorway.
Yeah, I think sort of Tony Benn used to talk about this mostly in relation to sort of G7, G8 protests and, escalating violence at those protests back in the early noughties, right? Anarchists, anti-capitalists, etc., sort of smashing up town centres and putting bricks through windows. And I don't know if I can go as far as to say that he thought it was a sort of legitimate act of political protest, but his point was essentially, if you don't listen to these people, if you don't listen to their regular protests, eventually they're going to start throwing bricks through windows, because if you're not listening to them otherwise, it kind of ends up being the only legitimate outlet that people have. In the same way, I guess what happened in Cardiff is the same. You sort of end up in a situation where rioting becomes the only way people feel they can be heard. What's there's that Rage lyric, isn't there? Like, a riot is the rhyme of the unheard. It's what you end up.
I think you're the only regular Rage Against the Machine listener.
That's not true.
Or many of the three of us.
You've been the only guy cheering in that royal blood cut.
He's right.
Yeah. I'm clapping.
Yeah.
I hate Niall Horan and Lewis Capaldi.
Yeah.
Niall Horan, actually friend of Joe, so take that away. Take that out of your
Lewis
mouth.
Capaldi is not.
Yeah. fuck Lewis Capaldi.
Lewis Capaldi secured the Pyatt Tenants collab
Yeah.
that we were discussing on the YouTube comments last week.
Yeah, I think importantly, if you know Lewis Capaldi or you have any form of social media account, spam him and get him to give Ed the t-shirt, okay?
Yeah, be class.
Can you explain for people that aren't familiar with Scottish culture what that is?
Oh, they don't know about the biggest collab in Scottish culture
Yeah, no, for
ever.
sure.
Al-Sawar and Hamza Yusuf.
Tenants is a lager brewed in Glasgow.
No, I think people knew that bit, yeah.
Okay, well, you asked for both.
Yeah.
So you're treating the audience. You're treating the audience like an idiot, not me. And Pyatt is a streetwear brand based in Edinburgh, which makes really sick clothes. Big fan.
Can we just talk about the drip on those t-shirts? Because it was electric,
Huge.
wasn't it?
And they combined for a collab that was you could only get in person at an event at Voodoo Rooms in Edinburgh at 7 p.m. on Saturday. And I asked my sister to go and get me one, and she did not. But in fact, I didn't ask that. I gave her no other details. She said,
Do you think Capaldi was there?
Capaldi was not
no
there.
way.
Obviously not.
Oh, actually, he was in
Capaldi
Dundee
didn't
on
queue.
Sunday. So they probably, I imagine they gave it to him ahead of time.
Marketing, yeah, dish
But
it
he was
out.
also, but he was wearing it.
I imagine they gave it to him ahead of time.
What was that for?
That's unheard. That was unnecessary.
When did you become part of their PR team?
No.
It would
Right
be
now, yeah.
sensible to give
No.
Capaldi
You've given them a lot. You've given them a lot.
So I'm expecting a care package to drop anytime soon.
Oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
I love pie tea and Tenants both. I love both of them, and please send us one.
Yeah,
2.
definitely.
Send us 2, 3. Do you want one?
What is it to do with the football or something?
No. Very good. Okay, to get back on track then, we're talking about rioting as legitimate political expression. It comes back to this point. I saw David Davis in the New Statesman at the weekend saying that people sort of tied up within protest, people have the right to protest and also the right to disrupt. Like, what is the point of a protest if it is not disrupting? And then Just Stop Oil sort of crashed the rugby Premiership final.
They're attacking the working man once again.
Once again.
No, if it wasn't the Crucible, now it is Twickenham.
Just a word on London this weekend as well, because I was on my way into town to go for some drinks, and there was like this ungodly concoction of Twickenham summoning them, the Twickenham Jeans and Shoes Brigade, SHEUX shoes, brown shoes. Then there was the Luton and Cov fans going to Wembley for the playoff final, and then in between those two groups of people, if you picture them in your heads, then I want you to picture like an army of teenage boys and girls dressed as comic book characters for Comic-Con, and watching all of these people kind of intermingle with each other in central London was a sight to behold.
It's a beautiful tapestry of modern Britain.
It actually probably is.
They're like university prospectus. Like, we attract everyone.
Do you think Just Stop Oil made the rugby Premiership final more popular? Do you think more people have heard about it as a result?
Yeah, I think rugby, hardly anyone, I like rugby, but I didn't know the Premiership final was on this weekend.
Ava, as our barometer of a normal person, did you know the rugby was on this weekend?
I did not know the rugby was on this weekend, but that's probably because I'm dating someone now who doesn't play rugby. And that used to be my
Is
signifier.
it the first time?
Yeah, that used to be my signifier at any sporting event. I bet I know they're at the rugby.
I'm where is it today? Is that the rugby?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm changing my view of Just Stop Oil slowly. I think they're getting better at securing outrageous amounts of media coverage without really disrupting anyone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We all saw clips of, or I saw a clip at least, of the crowd shouting wanker at the protesters. And so
the rugby.
Yeah. And so
they chucked pints on
and so you're like, what are they doing? Oh, Just Stop Oil. Oh, what's Just Stop Oil? And then you begin the trade. Oh, maybe they're right about just stopping oil. Maybe I'll get involved. It's doing their tactics.
Maybe I'll get involved. Yeah, the sort of people who go to rugby.
No, it's not the crowd. I didn't mean the crowd. Well, maybe them. Maybe they would do.
They were booing. I don't think
they were.
Well,
maybe there's one environmental.
You know who weren't booing? Chelsea Flower Show. They liked it.
Did they?
When you panned out, there was another video, and they were clapping.
Were they?
It was this.
I'm not sorry. The only one I've seen, they're like, security.
Yeah. That was the first one, and she's like using the hose. Then there's another video where it's panned out, and they're like,
that'll solve it.
That's the gracious clapping that they do at Chelsea Flower Show.
No, I think Just Stop Oil are getting better. I think they're getting shitloads of media attention with like big set piece stunts, but it's less disruptive to normal people, right? They're targeting people who go to Chelsea Flower Show, i.e. freaks. And people
say that.
People.
No, I'm only getting protective because my dad dropped on me the other day.
Here we go.
My dad is like this, like London geezer, and he was like, I'd quite like to go to the Chelsea Flower Show, and I was like, sorry.
Yeah.
Words I never thought you'd say.
So yeah, I'm sorry, Ava's dad, but I think you might be a freak for wanting to do that.
He'll kill you.
Yeah, I suspect he probably will.
The size of you.
Yeah, and then also the people at the Premiership rugby final at Twickenham again.
Sale Sharks fans.
Yeah. Yeah, and Saracens freaks. You know, they're not in the same way. You know, they were shutting down like the Dartford crossing, and that obviously has like a huge swathe of people that it affects. I think they're getting smarter with it.
I just wish I knew what they were going to say. I wish they knew what they were going to say when the stunt was done. Like, it always feels like they do the big stunt, and then this kind of awkward silence, and then someone just shouts, "We're opening oil fields!" No one gets it. It's like, why didn't you say things like...
I think it's probably, they're quite flustered, aren't they, in that moment?
Well, I think we need better training.
If you're running towards 30 men whose job it is to hit each other quite hard,
you said better training, right? You have quite a good anecdote, don't you, about a Just Stop Oil training workshop that was...
Yeah, I do actually. It's great. This is also, my friend.
You don't have to name people.
No, I won't. But my friend who doesn't have a podcast. So this is his platform. I'll credit him next week if he wants me to.
Yeah.
But a friend who's a reporter was tasked with infiltrating Just Stop Oil or a similar kind of environmental group. They were having an open day almost in Westminster. Like they had lots of stalls, etc. And he went along to, I think it was Just Stop Oil, went along there and said, "Oh, I'd like to join." They said, "Great, come to this training session in," I think it was in a shipping container in East London, and they had there was 14 people there. So my friend went along. He went in costume. He was wearing like walking boots, like horrible trousers, etc.
You're moving as if he had like those sticks that you walk with as well. Yeah.
Walked in.
Yeah.
East London.
Walked in, fitting the part. And so he said they had to do like lots of like role play stuff. Like they'd pretend, say it was Ollie and I. Ollie would pretend to be an angry driver, and I would pretend to be sitting on the ground blocking the road. And it was like trying to get you in the mindset of whatever. So my friend goes back to the...
Do you want to do that now? No?
Yeah, try.
Get out of the fucking road!
No! That was good. So, like that.
Lovely.
But then he goes back to the outlet that he works for, and I don't know why, but the story was delayed. And in the intervening time, The Sun published the exact same story. One of their reporters had infiltrated Just Stop Oil and gone to one of their training events. But not just that, it was the exact same event that my friend had been at. And not just that, the person that my friend had been doing the role play with was in fact the Sun reporter.
No way.
So there was two undercover reporters taking it up. So 14 people, 2 were journalists, and then it turns out there was a separate third reporter in the room as well. So 3 out of 14 of these people in this room, Just Oil's guerrilla training camp. We're undercover reporters.
God, he missed his deadline quite hard, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's not a bad way for sort of the proprietors of The Sun and The Mail and other newspapers of that type to collapse those organisations by just infiltrating them with their undercover reporters, like the enemy within. Just take them down.
Not really, because what are you going to prevent? Like, now we know that they're not going to move out the road. What do you mean?
I bumped into a Just Stop Oil Slow March actually on Friday, and Chris Packham was there. I had a chat with him, and it didn't seem that effectual, to be honest with you. They were sort of slow marching down the road, and then the police were like escorting them, and then the second, police need some kind of section 12 or something or other where they sort of immediately get like a block on the road and they're allowed to move them out the way. And then they just moved them onto the pavement and the traffic went past. I feel like the police have kind of responded.
It was so ineffectual that we published a video of Chris Packham that went everywhere.
Yeah, no.
And then he was on Times Radio and LBC and all the other brands.
Yeah. But that was him talking about the right to protest.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have filmed him if you'd just seen him walking around Trafalgar Square.
Yeah, but their goal isn't to get Chris Packham on telly.
Yes, it is.
Just Stop Oil's.
I suppose
Just Stop Oil.
It's not their ultimate goal.
Just Stop Oil's only goal.
What was he on telly for? To talk about the slow march, to talk about the climate crisis.
He was actually making a documentary about the right to protest, and he was being filmed by a Channel 4 film crew for that documentary, and they filmed me interviewing him.
Oh, it's so Channel 4.
That's fun.
Well, I wouldn't have minded if I actually had a camera, but I was using my phone, so I look like one of those sort of weird Westminster people that goes around like heckling MPs.
I've got one more thing to say about Just Stop Oil. I might have said it before.
Say it.
I think it's really funny that they force people to defend ridiculous cultural institutions like the snooker, like the sanctity of snooker, like the sanctity of the Gallagher Premiership rugby final. These people have worked long and hard to see their team, Saracens, take on Sail Sharks. England will die without rugby union.
Yeah, and the snooker as well. That's so true. Yeah, the sanctity of the bay is defiled once again by a crusty.
Also, like, that's so rugby that they were shouting like, "Oh, wanker!" Like,
Wankers.
wanker.
Here at HQ.
Yeah.
You can't come here.
How did they get it? Actually, easiest place for Just Stop Oil to sneak in because they're all the same, aren't they? They're all the same class.
One of us.
They were going anyway.
Oh, finally, we don't have to cosplay as a working class person. Oh.
Okay then, so this is sort of a double-edged sword. Millennials are ruining the Conservative Party, which is an interesting perspective. I'd say that the Conservative Party have been ruining the lives of millennials for the last 30 years, but we'll come on to that. And then also that same generation of people will also inherit the most wealth in history. Ed, do you want to start us off by talking about the Conservative Party story, and then we'll take it from there and we'll figure out sort of how the inherited wealth develops.
Before that, can I just point out that millennials are not aged between 17 and 35.
Where did it say that?
The Resolution Foundation predicts millennials, those aged between 17 and 35.
Onward say it's 25 to 40.
It is.
Is that it? Is that the
20? Well, no, it's actually like 27 to 40.
What are the years?
1996.
All I know is I'm a millennial, and so is John Elledge, and he's 42.
Does John Elledge feel comfortable with you telling everyone how old he is on this podcast?
Cut that too.
How old are millennials, Ava?
Not 17 and 35.
I don't think you can be 17 and a millennial.
It definitely starts.
No, you're 50 Gen Z.
No, 92 millennials.
Is this just a typo? Is this
No. I think it is. I think maybe it's disputed territory.
Can I just say it ends at 96? That's when it ends.
I know this because Johnny Mercer once told me in a pub that we were of the same generation, and I was so affronted by that I went and looked up the edges of what being a millennial was, and it's his age at the top and me at the bottom. I'm on the bottom edge.
Right.
And he's in the upper edge.
Agenda interpretation of being
Bottom edge
nearly
of Johnny
30.
Mercer.
Yeah, the power bottom of Johnny Mercer. Now, if you want to, in future, when you're thinking about millennials, just think the top of the cohort, Johnny Mercer, bottom of the cohort, Ollie Dugmore. That's a little gift from me to everyone else.
Then I'm not a millennial.
Yeah, I'm 3
You're a
younger than
Gen
you.
Z.
No, I'm millennial.
You are not a millennial.
I'm 96.
Yeah, you are Gen Z.
By your own parameters, I'm a
Oh
millennial.
my fuck, is he Gen Z?
He's Gen Z.
Can't you tell?
I think you might have to leave the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm wearing
Oh, so we can come to you for the youth perspective on things now, Ed. That's great.
Okay.
Gen Z
You guys have your millennial discussion.
Yeah,
and I'll give
and
the
then
Gen
you can
Z.
tell us that we're boomer fucks.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
And you're millennial.
I'm on the cusp.
Okay, borderline. Anyway, the thing is, this is completely pointless. Millennials are not going conservative. There's a really interesting piece by John Byrne Murdoch in the FT not too long ago that shows that traditionally throughout all of history, as people have aged, they've become more conservative, right? It's that old cliche saying, right? If you're young and not left wing, you don't have a heart. If you're old and not right wing, you don't have a head. And tale as old as time, people became more conservative as they aged. And I guess the thing you can figure out from that is as people got older, they accumulated more wealth. So they therefore had an interest in conserving the status quo and staying rich. I think, ipso facto, the fact that millennials aren't accruing wealth, aren't buying houses, and generally speaking are part of a wage class rather than an asset class, they have no interest in conserving the status quo. Why would you want things to remain the same if your life fucking sucks? Riddle me that. Onward.
You're taking on onwards.
Yeah, I'm taking him on. But that's the point.
Yeah.
Right? That the think tank Onward is saying that this poses an existential threat to the Conservative Party. And I don't know if it does, but nonetheless, it is interesting, isn't it?
You know what it would be helpful is if someone who used to be a reporter started to be the director of Onward. That this could line him up quite well to become a Conservative MP.
In the seat of
Selby. Specifically.
We've bitched about Seb Payne, I think, several times in this podcast.
I think we mentioned him in every podcast.
Brainworms.
Friends of PoliticsJOE.
Seb Payne brainworms. But yeah,
Lives rent-free, unlike me.
What do you think the role of millennials is in politics, Ed? Because that's what Onward wants to talk about. What is the role of the millennial?
I think it's interesting. The framing of it is interesting because I think it speaks to maybe a right wing or certainly conservative opinion in that they are owed votes. Like for however many decades, you got to a certain age and we made you rich and you voted for us and that was the deal. And almost instead of like looking inward and being not onward, looking inwards about what have we done to betray, like why is this pact ended? Why is this social contract ended? I think, oh shit, maybe it's because we haven't made anyone rich and these people will live in warehouses with 10 strangers in bunk beds. They're like, hang on, why aren't you holding up your side of the deal? We're trying to hold up ours. It's quite hot dog car meme. Being like,
what's that?
It's
we're all trying to find the guy that did this.
I'm going to briefly explain a sketch where I think you should leave, which is where a man there's a car crash in a clothes shop and the car is a hot dog car and a man wearing a hot dog costume keeps going, whoever did this is going to be in big trouble. That's the meme.
How old is he?
He's a millennial.
Yeah, he's a millennial. Tim Robinson's a millennial.
He's not 49.
Probably not. Probably not. This is derailed. This is absolutely.
Whoever did this.
Oh, exactly. Oh, we're all trying to find the person who derailed the Pubcast.
No, completely. It's like, why would... It's almost as if they're entitled, right? It's like, these people should be voting Conservative. It's like, if you don't actually offer anything that's going to improve the material conditions of those people, why would they vote for you? In fact, I'd go as far as to say that your party is waging political warfare on that generation with all sorts of things, whether it's tuition fees, whether it's the ability to buy a house. Like, let's just take that rather simple fact. If you're not going to make their lives better, why would they vote for you? They surely understand this point because they relentlessly make the lives of pensioners better.
Can I hypothesize something?
Shoot.
Maybe it's kink.
In what sense?
Well, we're going to keep punishing you and hurting you and you're not going to vote for us.
Is that like the sadomasochistic?
Oh, you like that? More interest in your student loans, yeah?
Yeah.
The sadomasochistic groups at large in the Conservative Party is like, well, everyone likes this.
Yeah, queuing 5 hours for a doctor's appointment, are we? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think I think I'm going to try and make this like vaguely. I think there is there's political capital to be gained in doing that, i.e. Within the context of the culture war, the Conservative Party base likes to read in the Daily Mail that, for example, graduates are having a hard time, or that young people can't buy a home because they're like, yeah, fuck you, I have a home, you can't have a home. That's crabs in the bucket mentality of no one else is allowed to have anything nice. I've got mine, you can't have anything else. Crab tries to climb out of the bucket, and then the Daily Mail reader just pincers them and just pulls them down.
I've never heard that analogy before, crab in the bucket. I love that.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's great, yeah.
Yeah, it's scientifically proven. If you put a load of crabs in a bucket, obviously they stack up on top of one another. If one of the crabs successfully starts to maneuver itself out of the bucket, the other crabs will pull it back in.
That's so great.
It has absolutely no bearing on the other crabs, right? If the other one gets out. Like, if the other one gets out, it's not going to change their fortunes. It's just, they just want to be like, no, fuck you. You can't have that. So they take it, they pull it back into the bucket, come into the crab bucket.
I wonder if this will, back away from the crabs discussion, back to the serious political discussion we were having before Ava derailed it. I wonder if eventually this will come back to bite the Tories even more so. In that you talk
yeah, I mean, you probably not.
but you talk about it's like the Daily Mail reader. They don't exist in a vacuum where they don't interact with young people. They have children, and so eventually they might be like, "Oh shit, why does my child not have? Why don't I have grandkids? Is that like because they can't live by themselves, can't afford to that?"
Ed Campbell, I love you. Great segue onto the next topic, mate. Because what happens when those people die?
You get
the inheritance.
Yes.
Millennials stand to, what was it? I saw it on Forbes or something. A $60 trillion wealth tsunami or something. Was that what it was?
That's coming your way.
Yeah.
Not us Gen Zs.
Oh, I can't wait for that. I'm going to be so dry.
I can't wait to drown in all that money. Yeah, no.
I won't get it.
I know that's what you were saying. I was.
You're going to be what? Tsunami'd?
Yeah, I'm going to be buried under a mountain of cash. No, it's the fact that these baby boomers, right, they will eventually die, and because their homes have appreciated in value by like 10x, 20x in the time, they're very rich, and eventually their cash will pass to their children, who probably will be about 60, but at least they'll get to buy a house then.
They're all doing it though, aren't they? They're all giving gifted deposits to their children anyway.
I think that
they're all getting on the housing market. The problem is, the real issue that millennials have is the deposit, because it's you've got a proven. I mean, I've got 10 years of proof that I can pay a considerable amount of money per each month on time. Sometimes I don't. Like, oh my god, I owe my Klarna. Sorry, it's just one. Anyway,
you want to sort that out now?
They've got but we've got a proven track record that you can pay that every single month. The problem is getting to the deposit in the first place. So as I'm now pitching, any young man out there who would like to pay for my deposit,
any cash pigs
or mine. Did you know what Ava would love if someone paid my deposit for a flat?
That's my kink. Oh yeah, pay Ed's deposit. Oh.
Can we just, Ed, do you have anything you'd like to add in this conversation about DOMs and subs? Is there anything you'd like to talk about here?
Are you trying to get me to talk about something?
Yeah, the paintball
subs. Oh, there's an event I'd quite like to go and report on, which is some dominatrixes have arranged a paintball match against their submissives, but the submissives don't get guns. So it's just dominatrixes, probably nearly murdering. It's a serious police issue.
They'll lie about that as well. They'll fucking lie about that as well. They got a shame.
They'll kill the subs. You've got to put me in my misery. Yeah.
Okay.
What about that tax policy?
Yeah. Do we have anything else to say? Should we just leave it there?
Who else would you like to see in a one side?
One side has paintball guns.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea. We get 3 Tory MPs, and we just like.
This is a metaphor for Britain's housing market.
Yeah.
You have the paintball guns. These are your children. They don't have guns. Have at it.
Oh my god.
If they don't sign up for this, they're probably going to masturbate, choking themselves anyway.
What's going on?
This has gone left. This has gone so far fucking left.
The MPs will only participate if they can choke themselves with a belt throughout.
Someone handing out free satsumas at the entrance to the paintball ground.
They're trying to get shot in the temple.
Oh, fuck. This has been the PoliticsJOE podcast. Thanks very much for listening. Hopefully we'll see you on the next one, but after that, maybe not. Take care. Bye-bye.